And we are live. Welcome back to the Heal with Gold show. Guys, when you come in, say hello. Give me your name because sometimes if you don't approve StreamYard, I will not see your name in here. And I would love to see and know who is watching. And so, welcome back. And I want to remind everybody that we are continuing our 10-part series on the 10 golden nuggets to heal your mind and soul. And we're doing that in memory of Miriam Amsalem, my friend who passed away very suddenly. And I really, Miriam was somebody who really helped people in so many ways. She was such a kind lady. And what better way to honor her life by bringing 10 amazing speakers to you to empower you, to ignite um, the healing process, to learn new things from like these amazing people. And today I'm so excited to bring Kim Smiley to you. Kim and I met online, I think it was Instagram. But what was so amazing was that Kim immediately said, you know what, I'm going to be in Florida. Let's get together. And we were able to put a face to the name. It wasn't just this person on the internet. It became somebody that I could hug and get to know. And we followed up with many conversations, many opportunities to see how we can collaborate. And what's amazing about Kim is that she not only lives and breathes this topic of acts of kindness and empathy. She started in 2015 an incredible movement called the Empathy and Fact. And I want to bring her over without further ado so she can tell you everything about it and talk about how she weaves in living one big act of kindness throughout her life, throughout everything that she does. So, without further ado, here is Kim Smiley. Welcome, Kim. I'm so excited to have you because we hit it off. We had so much in common. It was all from a contact that you reached out online, and we started talking, and we both. You know what's amazing, Kim? One thing that I was thinking about it was that neither of us was afraid of being scammed by the other person, or we weren't like with one foot forward, one backwards. We weren't like that. We went all in. The conversation was immediately all in. You shared, I shared, I'm going to be in Florida, let's get together, tell me where and I'll be there. And there wasn't that, I don't know who this lady is reaching out of the blue. I want to get to know her because we have something in common. And it was like when we met, it's just like we knew each other, right? It was crazy.
It was crazy. It was an instant connection. I think it was Adrian Gold that introduced us, wasn't it?
Oh, it could be. You know what it was? Adrian was, by the way, for all the listeners, Adrian Gold, I have interviewed Adrian in the Heal with Gold show. I am trying to bring her back. And if you go through the YouTube channel, you can see all of the lectures and the interviews. You will see Adrian there. I think Adrian was coming to Florida, and she was wearing my dress.
Yes.
Then you reached out, and by the way, you're wearing my dress right now.
Yes, I am. This is my favorite dress.
Oh, thank you.
I love it for the fit and the aesthetic, but I also love it for just the symbolism of everything that you do, Mary. So it's my lucky dress.
Thank you. Hi, Marina. Welcome. Love seeing you here. Thank you for being with us. I want to talk. Well, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. First of all, your background is fascinating, and we had so much in common just about your life in Japan and your experiences in the East Coast and travels. But besides all of this travel and fashion flair, you're a Harvard grad. I mean, you were an incredible writer. You're a brilliant woman. I mean, you are a force, and I love that. because we have this, like women have, there's no reason for us to be sitting on the sidelines, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
We have tremendous knowledge and resourcefulness, and we make something, create something out of nothing. And you are a real example of that. So I want you to tell the story of your background. So let's start there, and then we'll talk about the empathy effect, and we'll talk a little bit about the store that you have and what you're doing and how you're weaving this in with acts of kindness.
Sure. So my story starts back when I was a little girl, when I was 3 years old. My parents were very brave, and I have two brothers. So I was 3 and my brothers were 5 and 7. And my parents took us for a year on a sabbatical. We started in Israel on a kibbutz. Then we got a car and we drove east, and we ended up traveling through 9 countries in Asia. My mom got sick on that trip and we ended up cutting it after a year. But that trip was really the formative years really for the company that I would found 35 years later. That trip just really inspired me, and just it instilled in me a real wanderlust and a sense of connection with other people all across the world. So I really owe it to my parents for opening up my eyes at the earliest age to just the beauty of diversity and just the beauty of other cultures. So, I ended up going to Japan after graduate school. I got a fellowship to study there for a year. And it was while I was doing a fellowship in Japan that I discovered the lace that is now the material that I use in my fashion business. So all of my jewelry is made out of Japanese lace. And so I was on a very academic path. I was in graduate school studying to become a professor. But I ultimately switched gears. And after I came back from Japan, I ended up working in the nonprofit sector instead of pursuing my PhD to become a full professor. And I worked in the nonprofit sector for 13 years. But I was always an artist, and I was always really interested in fashion. But I didn't think that I could really pull that off as a full-time career. My parents taught me to be very practical. So I spent 13 years working with vulnerable populations in the nonprofit sector. I had many really fascinating jobs. I always worked with populations that were vulnerable in some capacity. So whether it be underemployment or through domestic violence or child welfare. And ultimately, in 2015, I decided to resign from my job in the nonprofit sector. I was an executive in the nonprofit sector. It was hard because it was golden handcuffs, but I did resign, and I took that leap of faith. In 2014, while I was still working full-time in the nonprofit sector in philanthropy, I debuted my line at Fashion Week in Toronto, World MasterCard Fashion Week. So, Mary, I felt like such a fraud. Like one minute I was like working in the nonprofit sector. The next minute, I was dressing up as a fashion designer. I was going to present my collection at this show, having no idea if anyone would resonate with my designs. But my designs were really well received. And what was especially well received, Mary, was my business model, which we could talk more about. But the fact that I employ newcomers for a living wage in Canada. So all of our jewelry is made locally. And in 2015, I got the gumption, with the support of my beautiful husband, to leave my job. And I've been doing this full time ever since.
It's amazing. I mean, your life is so rich, rich with knowledge, like wisdom from different places, from different people, and you took it all of that and you combined it all to create something really, really special. And most people, especially people who don't know anything about the world of fashion, they don't understand the value of what you're doing, the cost that it takes, and the pressures that we have as fashion designers to keep everything at a low cost, right? So people ask me 100 times, why there is a dress with similar fabric for somebody else for half the price? Why is that? And when I explain about that, all the employees in the factories that I use earn living wages, that they get an hour break or two for lunch because they're in Europe, so they really get they get a nice lunch. But they had the whole atmosphere the place is clean, it's a whole different ball game. I've been in China, I've been in factories, and I said, how can I talk about healing? How can I talk about women's values? How can I talk about what we can do, and then not support women in the way that I speak? So if I'm a hypocrite, then I would just go and not care. But I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. But people don't understand that when we're doing what we're doing, we get pressures because we want to grow the company, we want to earn a living for our own families, but we are spending so much money to do things in a way that we feel is right. So I
Yes.
want to talk about the doing the right thing, the doing the kind thing, because I think that both of us, we live that as a purpose. It is a core value. We live congruent with our core value. That's why we run our businesses the way we run. For us, there is no questions. We don't consider doing it what we see in our eyes not to be the right thing, because we just live congruent with our values. But acts of kindness is a catalyst for healing in general. And I find it and I did all the lectures before we were going through each one of those values that or golden nuggets for healing. I find it that when you take your whole life, you take your hardship, you take your adversities, and you say, well, I'm going to live with a purpose. I'm going to use everything that I went through to be kind to other people. That's when you go from survivor to thriver. That's when you completely change your life. And the acts of kindness it's the way to buy joy, that lasting joy, right? That there's nothing that you can buy that gives you that lasting joy as being of service to others. So you don't have to be a proper empath, but if you want to live a joyful life, you want to heal, you'll find a way to be kind to people. And I find it addictive once you become that person who is kind and you see the return, because it's unbelievable what happens, right? The joy that you get by seeing the results of your kindness, it is addictive. So it goes into that scale. You weaved into everything that you do because that's who you are and that's what you believe in. So I want to talk about, in your fashion business, how you did it. And I want to talk about the empathy effect. I don't care where you start. You can start it in order, you can go out of order, but I want to go and talk about those two things.
Okay. So it was interesting because when I resigned from my job in 2015, I had this idea for empathy that had been marinating in my mind for such a long time, since 2010. And, what tends to happen when you give yourself like a break, you tend to sort of realize what's really valuable and what's important. And I think, Mary, I'm sure people listening can really identify with this. But if something is so close to your soul, if something is just so embedded in the fabric of who you are, it's impossible not to pursue it. And sometimes, life is about timing. And for me, the timing was very long, from the inception of this idea that I had about spreading empathy to actually putting it out into the world. But what I want to tell people, and what I always tell women, is that, our lives are often so busy. We're doing so many different things. We're business women. We're often mothers. We're sitting on boards. We're doing so many different things. And we're very hard on ourselves because, we think we should be doing more. But for me, the empathy effect marinated in my imagination for 5 years before I actually did it. So let me tell you about what this idea was and how I sought to spread it with an online audience. So I had this idea, you can call it a hypothesis, that empathy is infectious. Like you were saying before, in the same way that acts of goodness and acts of kindness really inspire you to do more acts of kindness, I think there is also a cascading effect or a ripple effect with others. So when you do an act of kindness, it often will inspire the person who that kindness was visited upon to perform an act of kindness themselves, right? So it's this incredible effect that happens in the world. And that's really what I'm interested in, is how that effect and that karmic kind of cycle happens. So on June 8th of 2015, I went onto Facebook and I started a year-long social experiment. So whoever is watching on Facebook could check it out afterwards. It was called the empathy effect. And my hypothesis was that empathy is infectious. And I chose as my laboratory Facebook because I had always found that Facebook was quite harsh, quite toxic, that people could be very biting and mean and just not that empathetic and kind, right? Especially people have pseudonyms, not real names, screen names. So it's very easy to be, this armchair kind of, critic, right? Online, because you're not confronting someone. So what I sought to do was every single day, except for Shabbat, I took Saturdays off. I posted a photograph in black and white, and I shared a story that went along with that photograph that illustrated empathy. I posted it at 8 a.m. every morning, so 6 days a week. So people who create content know it was actually a lot. I didn't even understand what I was doing at the time. I had worked in marketing, but I didn't really get that I had sort of pledged to do this for a year, and I pledged to do it publicly. But as you know, Mary, when we launch things and when we, get things off the ground, we have no idea if anyone is going to care about the things that we're passionate about, right? So I didn't know if anyone would care about the empathy effect, but I knew that I had to do it for myself because it was the type of idea that was on my back and it wouldn't get off until I actually released it and put it out into the world. So what happened with the empathy effect was that on day 5 of the project, I posted a story about a man that I had gone to camp with named Matthew Morton. He was a doctor in Toronto, and he was celebrating his 37th birthday. When he was 32 years old, he was given 18 months to live. He had a brain tumor, and he had surpassed all those expectations of, he was very, very sick, but he lived for way longer than the doctors forecasted. And so what I did on day 5 is, with the permission of his wife, Heidi Wilk, who's since become a good friend of mine, I invited the internet to wish Matthew Morton a happy birthday and to sing him a happy birthday. And that was the post on day 5. And what happened was quite beautiful. The internet just exploded, and people from all over the world, from Pakistan, from Iran, from Dubai, all jumped in to wish Matthew Morton a happy birthday. And from there, it just kept growing and growing. And, I was really lucky, the story got picked up by Upworthy. It got picked up by MTV, because it was a happy story. It was a beautiful story about the internet coming together. And it was also very counter to what we often see in social media, which is so much negativity, right? And so much harshness. And we often see the pessimistic and the dark side of what people are capable of. So my idea was to sort of create pinpricks of light every single day and to see how much that light can kind of bleed through. And by the end of the experiment, there were over 100,000 people in 75 countries that followed the empathy effect. And so people were listening. And for me, what was so cool about it is that I started engaging with people, and people became my content creators alongside me. And to me, that's really exciting, Mary, because that points to the infectious nature of empathy. People started reaching out to me and said, I have a story. I want to tell you about my friend and what my friend is doing. Let me send you a picture of them. Let me write a story about them. So I started becoming a curator of content. And I called my contributors the Confederacy of Dreamers. One of my contributors is one of my closest friends, Dr. Stephanie Bott, and she would create this beautiful content, about healing and connection. But I had people all over the world that were sending me stories and sharing with me. And it just made the internet and the world feel kinder, smaller, more connected, and hopeful and optimistic. And so today, in all the different, platforms like on Facebook and Instagram and all the different networks combined, we have over 275,000 followers. And it's not a testament to me. It's a testament to the power of kindness and empathy and the fact that there's a paucity of it outside. But when someone shines a light and creates an opportunity for people to gather around that light, people flock. They're just looking for the opportunity. And so on the final day of the experiment, day 365, we launched a video with my partner Dream Vision. So I'm partners with this incredible, brilliant film producer named Adam Farberman in Toronto. And we produced this video that was really a call to action. And basically what we said was, it's amazing that you followed along and that you shared our content and commented and, engaged with it. That's beautiful. But what's more beautiful is to actually do something empathetic. So we invited people to partake in what we called the empathy pledge. So it was #empathy pledge. And the idea was that, there's this idea circulating around of random acts of kindness, right? You've heard of that.
Yes.
So our idea was, forget random acts of kindness. We're interested in deliberate acts of kindness. So I invited my followers to go out and to practice one deliberate act of empathy a day. Train yourself, train your kids to look for opportunities to insert empathy and kindness and goodness. Because often what we see is that 95% of people, and this is not my theory, this is what's research that's out there, people are on autopilot. They're in their smartphones. And I'm guilty of it too. We're all guilty of it. We're so absorbed in our own lives and our own inner worlds. And we gave people an opportunity every day to look for the openings to practice empathy. And we created an empathy pin that people would wear to sort of strike a conversation. We sold the pin. My company paid for it. We sold them for $10 a pin. We sold thousands of pins. And then we gave 100% of the money to the charity associated with Matthew Morton, because that was the post that really took the empathy effect to the next level, which is a charity. It's actually a charity in the States too. It's called High Lifeline. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, Mary. There's a big, they do a big fundraiser in Miami.
Yes.
And that charity deals with helping families of people who are experiencing severe illness, often terminal illness, and they just add goodness and make their lives a bit easier, And so that's the story of the empathy effect.
It is, it's so emotional. When you were telling the story, you were getting a little bit verklempt, I think. I don't know. I certainly felt it. I felt your energy. I felt your passion. And I know that you are that person, that you live it. And that's why I wanted you to be the one to come and talk about this topic, because I was very careful about picking people that I knew personally, that they live really day in, day out what they preach. And that it's not just for show or because they learned that this is what you say, but this is really how they feel. And I know that you are, along with your husband, and it's just the person that you are. I remember very much that when we met, a lot of the conversation was, how can I help you? How can I bring people to you? You cared, you wanted. I cared the same for you, because we truly believe that rising tides rises all boats, and we wanted to support one another. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people live today in a culture of competition. Yeah. Right? Social media became, they look better, they have more, they are vacationing. I don't know. All of the way that social media became, it's like a display of most people, right? Not everybody, but most people. They're taking the highlights and they're showing, half the time it's all fake. It's presented so it's going to look this way. They're not showing the fights, the screaming, the disharmony in their lives, right? They're showing just the best moments. And then what happens, it creates I don't have that. Why do you have that? And it gives those bad feelings. So it's so important to try, we have a choice. It's not that we can live today without social media, but we can create what we want with it
Yes.
and use it as a tool for kindness, as you did with the empathy effect. um, every day before I go to sleep, I say to myself, what did I do good for others?
Hmm.
And if I didn't find anything, I go through my Instagram small business owners, and I reshare posts, and I try to use social media as a tool for kindness. And I
Yes.
think that that's what you were saying. Teach your children to be deliberate.
Yes.
Um, I
Yes.
think it was, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before last, I had John Israel here. We talked about gratitude and how he was deliberate about being grateful and adding gratitude in his life. And he committed, just like you committed to the empathy effect, he committed to send, I believe it was 5 letters every single day for a year to people that he wanted to thank for something. And it's really hard, and he couldn't send more than 3 times per person. So when you make the calculation, that's a heck of a lot of people. I don't even know that I know that many people to thank, but
That's
he,
amazing. That's beautiful.
it was beautiful. And I
Mhm.
think that when you make a decision and you say to yourself, I am going to practice that, I'm going to do it for a long period of time, because this way it's going to also become more of my way of living, and
Mhm.
let me see how can I inspire other people. After he did that experiment, he spoke about it, he wrote about it, and his entire career took off. And I truly think that when we are here to serve, and when we are here to be kind, and we believe that we can be a catalyst of good,
Yes.
good comes back to in some way or another. And not that you have to do it for it, but it just happens. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if you know her, but there's a woman in Toronto named Ellen Schwartz.
I don't know.
She is a teacher, she's an educator, and she's founded two different charities. One of them is called Jacob's Ladder, and the
Oh, I
other
heard
one,
about Jacob's ladder.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she made it into a huge thing. And she actually disbanded it because it achieved its mission, which is like the dream of every charity. But
Mhm.
she also has another charity called Project Give Back. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because number one, you have to meet her. I'm trying to get
Okay.
you to Toronto, so you have to meet Ellen. And the other reason is that she teaches children empathy through her program that she's developed for the school system. And the logo is a boomerang. And it's the whole idea of like what you put out there comes back to you in that karmic kind of cycle, right? And so she teaches children at a very early age empathy and giving back and all about philanthropy. And for me too, that's my mission too, is I think if we can get people at a very young age, I think we could really transform the world. It sounds very sort of idealistic, but I think it's true, because as you know, bullying is at an all-time high. Social media has amplified bullying, and it's weaponized bullying, right? And there's anonymity through certain social media platforms that allow people to be even more vicious. And so I think if we can create those opportunities like Ellen Schwartz has to educate kids and to create empathy, because empathy is a muscle like any other muscle. If you build it, you're going to develop it. I just think that the future is brighter if we can do that.
I love that so much, and I'm taking you up on the offer of introducing me to her, because I love meeting, especially women, but anybody like that. But I just get so inspired. I remember when I moved to Boca, and I heard of this woman who she is the head of the kindness committee, and I was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I want to be her friend. And I was literally like courting her. And I was telling my husband, it's kind of creepy because I so much want to be her friend. But
Mhm.
that was because you get inspired when you have friends like that. Right? Because sometimes you forget and you get into you're living on autopilot, like you said, but then you have these people in your life. It really inspires you and motivates you to do more. I always say that if you take a dark room, it's a completely closed room, it's dark, and you open the door, the darkness doesn't come out, but the light goes in.
Mhm.
And I think that kindness is that light. It's
Mhm.
something that spreads. You can't make it dark, but the light can transform the darkness. I think that when people see you doing good, they are motivated to do good and become like you and become a better person.
Mhm.
Uh, the other way around, I don't think it's the same. I don't think that if you see somebody doing bad, you don't
Right.
say, "Oh, this is so inspiring. Let me be bad too." You know.
Right.
So
Agreed.
so there is a tremendous light to kindness, that we have to take this opportunity, and like you said, we have the power to change the world if we adopt that kind of living, and we teach our children and live this kind of life. Now we share, it's funny because I was going to say we share a love of fashion, but I have to correct that.
Yep.
I don't know that we share because I don't know that I love fashion. Okay, I said that online. Now it's on
Okay.
record. People are gonna quote me. Take it out of context.
Yeah.
um, I was never a fashionista.
Okay.
I was never somebody that cared about clothing or makeup, or I always loved jewelry. But I confess that I worked on that, and I can explain what I mean by that, because I loved it so much, and I didn't like it that I loved it so much.
Right.
So I tried to disconnect, and I successfully did that, and I'm actually really proud of that. But I don't consider myself a fashion designer. But what I like about fashion is the opportunity to inspire through fashion. I feel almost like when I'm dressing women, that's why I had to have a message in my clothing, and they always have a message. It's because I almost think that it is like an outdoor, those big outdoor posters.
Mhm.
Everybody that passes you by sees what you're wearing,
Yes.
and it affects not only you who are wearing, it affects other people. When we see a person well dressed, we say, wow, this woman is sharp, this man is sharp, like look at the thought, the quality. You can see when stuff is good, you see, and it's inspiring. And I think that I used fashion as a marketing tool,
Mhm.
because I want to use the clothing that we wear to be able to inspire other people. With the kintsugi print, it's the healing and the mending, right? I'm wearing my lotus, which is rebirth. I don't need to put words. For me, it's the hidden messages behind it. Now you love fashion, and you know how to dress, and I love how you put clothing together from Eastern inspiration, and how you wear a sari. I'm slightly jealous. I wish I could pull that off. I'm really tempted, but I think it looks good on you. I think it's going to look strange on me, but I love it. I love it. I just want you to know that people are seeing and we're loving it. We may not comment, but we're loving it. But you created this line of jewelry, and I want to go a little bit into that. And I don't do shows. When I do my shows, I'm not promoting people's businesses. I'm not here selling anybody, although I do recommend you to look at Kim Smiley's collection. But it is what the jewelry stands for, and I think that also when people understand what it stands for, it's a different shopping experience. You're
Yes.
no longer buying just because you think it's pretty. A lot
Mhm.
of people buy my clothing, they don't know the story, they don't read about it, they don't know anything, and they buy it and they think it's pretty. But once they know the story, the connection to the clothing, and you said that yourself, right? That you wear the dress, it's not
Yes.
just the comfort and the fit, it's also the meaning.
Yes.
And I think that once there is meaning, it's such a more incredible experience of wearing it when we know what it means. So I want you to share how you found the lace, about the lace, how you came up with the idea of the jewelry, who is making the jewelry, uh,
Mhm.
because it's an amazing story, and I want to share that with the world.
Okay, so let me just start by saying just a little bit more about the dress that I'm wearing. Because for me, when clothes are made ethically, there is a different energy to them. So I was speaking to the husband of one of my clients.
Kim, just one thing. I just want to answer this question that Marina has. Marina, Kim is wearing the earrings right now. Can you show the bracelet, Kim? You
I'm
see
wearing the
this?
earrings, and you could see it at kimsmiley.com.
Yes. So I just didn't want to miss
Yeah.
that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I have this client, her name's Marcia, and she has this incredible website. I have to introduce you to her too. Another Canadian lady you need to meet. So you really have to come here. She has a whole website devoted to shining the light on women doing good work. And I had the opportunity to meet with her husband. And, when you meet someone, you could just tell that there's something very magnetic and just special about them. So Marcia is this type of person. And when I met her husband, he didn't say very much, but I just got the sense that there was something very special about this man. And so we started talking, and, they were in my store in Toronto, and, I was sort of teasing some information out of him. And it turns out he used to be the CEO of Nike in Canada. And we started a conversation about energy and about the energy of clothes and the energy of fashion and design and artistic creativity. And he said to me that, when people wear Nike, they feel like they can jump higher, they can run faster, they can win, because energetically, like, the brand encapsulates that. And so I feel with our brands, people feel more restored. They feel more connected. They feel more beautiful. They feel more interested in elevating everything. So elevating the way you look, so elevating aesthetically, elevating your inner world, elevating how you connect with others. So when I chose this dress tonight, of course I chose it because I wanted to just show you how much I love it too. But I wear this dress when I want to feel empowered, because I think that clothing and jewelry and accessories that are made properly and ethically and that empower others, in turn empower the person who wears it, right? Because I'm putting it on my body, it's on my skin, right? And so I'm feeling it. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't buy, or I really try hard not to buy, things that are not made ethically, that are, when something is too cheap, there's a reason for that. And people get very excited about sales and when things are inexpensive, but they have to think about the supply chain and the reason why things are inexpensive. And so I just wanted to preface by saying that before I said anything. That this is kind of like my power dress.
Thank you.
And so thank you for designing it, because I always get so many compliments when I do wear it. Mm-hmm. So just to tell you the story of the genesis of my business, as I said at the earlier part of the show, the seeds were really planted for this social enterprise over 35 years ago. And, I used to play with the tribal jewelry that my parents collected on this trip, right? They had jewelry from Afghanistan and from Nepal and India and Iran and Iraq. I used to play with this stuff because I didn't have a lot of toys because we were traveling in a car, right? So it was really an opportunity for us kids to get creative, in terms of how we were going to amuse ourselves. So what happened, it's a great story. And I do love to tell the story of how the spark on my company, but so I'm an artist. I'm a self-taught artist. I've been painting since I can remember, since I was a little kid. And I love incorporating mixed media into my paintings. So I use found objects. I use all kinds of different materials. And when I went to Japan, I started getting really into lace because I found this Japanese lace. And, I started collecting antique lace and I started incorporating that into my paintings. And in 2000, I think it was around 2012, I got a series of photographs from an archive in Ontario, the Canadian Jewish Archive, of children. And I started incorporating them into my paintings. And I did a whole series of paintings using these archival photos and incorporating lace into the paintings. My dear friend from Montreal, Brian Abrason, was marrying this incredible woman, Sue Gold, and they asked me to create their ketubah, which is a Jewish marriage contract. And I painted their ketubah, and I used a piece of lace, Japanese lace, over the inscription of the vows of the ketubah. And one day I was sitting in my loft, like in downtown Toronto, and I literally had this incredible epiphany. I thought, these paintings are too beautiful to be on a wall. They should be adorned on a woman's body. Like I just had this flash of insight. And so that night, I took a piece of lace and I very roughly fashioned it into a bracelet. Like I'm not a seamstress by any stretch of the imagination. I, like most of us, I've taken my home ec course in grade 8. I literally sewed it onto my wrist, this piece of lace. And, you know, the next day, and I don't believe things are just sort of happen. I really believe in fate, you know, and think that things happen on a specific path and that the universe has a plan for us. So that morning, with the bracelet on my still on my wrist, I took a bath that morning because I couldn't shower because I didn't want to get the bracelet wet. I was meeting with a donor. So I was working in philanthropy and I was meeting with a donor who was a very successful he was a successful businessman. He was the CEO of a company called Danier that had 100 stores across North America. It was a leather goods store. And I was meeting with him to solicit a gift for him for the charity that I was working for. I was working for the Jewish community, kind of like the United Way of the Jewish community. And so during the conversation, and I talk like this, with my hands and I'm talking. And so like most women, I have like vision out in the back of my head, the side of my head, the side, I could see things. I see someone approaching me. We're in a restaurant, a bar in Toronto, and we're having a conversation. I see someone coming towards me thinking she's going to ask me, would you like some water? But no, she said, where did you get that bracelet? I'm so sorry to interrupt your conversation, but where did you get that bracelet? And I said, the bracelet, and I looked down because I kind of had forgotten that I made the bracelet. And I said, oh my gosh, like I just made that last night. Like it's nothing. She's like, oh my gosh, that's like, she's like, you made that? I thought it was like Israeli, or I didn't know it, like Middle Eastern, like it's so cool. It looks like henna. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. That's so nice. And I saw him watching. His name's Jeffrey Wartzman. So I saw Jeffrey watching. And then about 10 minutes later, another person came over, and you can't make this stuff up, right, Mary? Like this just is not the stuff of fiction, right? So another woman comes up and she said, I'm really sorry to interrupt your conversation. I saw that woman come up to you to ask you about your bracelet. Can I see that? Do you mind if I can try that on? And he was laughing at this point, right? This donor. And he said, do you know these people? Like, and I said, no, I've never met these people in my life. And the woman went away. I told her the story of how I just created it with a piece of lace fabric that I had, found in Japan. And he said, that's uncanny what just happened. He said, I don't want to talk to you anymore about your work in philanthropy. He said, I want to talk to you about your future as a designer. And so I was laughing because I had spent 13 years working in the nonprofit sector. Like my whole life was devoted to that point, to like these projects, these nonprofits that I worked for. So I worked for Habitat for Humanity. I worked for all these different, organizations, the Holocaust Center and Museum, all these wonderful organizations. And I kind of laughed. But when I walked back to my car, I put together the business model for my company. And it basically had 3 elements. The first was that I wasn't going to call it jewelry. I was going to call it wearable art, because each piece would be created by hand. I wasn't interested in mass production. I was interested in something very artisanal. The second thing was that I was going to pay a living wage. So I had first learned about the concept of a living wage when I was a graduate student at Harvard. There was a huge protest by the students of the university because the dining hall staff was not earning a living wage at the richest university in the world. So there was this massive demonstration, and I became very interested in the whole concept of a living wage. And so I said, I'm going to create a living wage, because there isn't a living wage in Canada. The minimum wage is below a living wage. It's very expensive to live in Toronto, where I live. And so I said, I am going to pay a living wage, and I'm going to hire people who are newcomers or people who are marginalized in some capacity. And I'm going to pay them a fair wage for their work to create this jewelry. So I'll design it and they're going to create it. So I want to create employment opportunities, meaningful employment opportunities, and pay fairly. I want to use fashion to elevate women, to give artisans an opportunity to do their art and to be paid fairly for it. And then the last thing was, I love poetry. I've written poetry since I was a little kid. And so I said, I'm going to use this to spread a love of poetry, So I named every piece. I decided I'm going to name all of the pieces of poetry, all of the pieces of jewelry rather in my collection after poets. Are you hearing the dinging of the
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how to get rid of that. It's on my computer. I apologize for that. I turned my phone off, Mary, I swear.
That's okay.
So I name all the pieces of jewelry after poets, either famous or emerging. And I started the company when I walked away. that was in 2000, I think, in 13. And then in 2014, I launched the business at World Mastercard Fashion Week. I took 2 days, as I said before, off for Fashion Week. And then 1 year later, I quit. I quit my job to do this full time. And, you know, my husband was incredible. I did it out of my house. I had my manufacturing in my dining room. So I used to have like women, newcomers from Syria, like gathered around my dining room table, you know, making the jewelry. And we got a huge break in, I think it was in 2018. The Prime Minister's wife, the Prime Minister of Canada, so Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, they approached me for me to give her jewelry and clothing, because I designed like a few pieces of clothing for a trip that she had. And that just gave my company massive exposure. So someone just knocked on the door, scared me.
Yeah.
And from there, you know, we had ups and downs, but ultimately I ended up getting an investor in my business. I'm very interested in the artistic side. I'm also interested in the business, but I recognize where my weaknesses are and where my strengths are. And so I partnered with a brilliant businessman who is an angel investor and who's become the president of my company. And he's helping me to develop more of a global brand and has helped me professionalize my business. And we've opened a flagship store in Toronto. And it's been really game changing since my partner Ronnie came on board. And he's taught me a lot. He's a Harvard Business School graduate. You know, he has tons of experience, decades of experience in the fashion sector. And so I'm like a sponge, Mary. Like I love learning. And so it's been incredibly edifying for me to be partnered with him. So I bring more the artistic side, he brings more the business side. And it's been a really interesting ride. You know, we opened the store in November of 2020. And 2 weeks later, we were closed for COVID for 230 days. So it was very sobering. But thank God, you know, we have a good online presence. We have a good Instagram. It's at Kim Smiley. And we were able to, I don't call it pivoting as a lot of entrepreneurs do. I call it pirouetting, because it's not just pivoting. Like when you're an entrepreneur, it entails a lot more than that. And we were able to do that and sort of survive like the COVID storm, you know, that hit all of us in the world.
This is an amazing story. I want to know something from you, and maybe I can learn a thing or two from you. Sometimes I feel that I do a good job by telling the story of what I'm doing, but then I realize that I don't, because so many people, I ask them, do you know what kintsugi is? And they have no idea. Or do you understand that our company is about, you know, a transformational journey? No, I don't. I just like your clothing. I never heard of any of that. And I'm like, come on, it's on the tags. It's on the here. I have a video here. I talk about it. But people don't consume the way we create.
Yeah.
They consume their own way. How do you tell the story? Because I think that you just telling me the story make me want to have your jewelry. Just the story itself makes me want it, because I want to support that, because it becomes even more beautiful than already it is.
Mm-hmm.
How are you telling the story? Because the story itself is so inspiring. Are you telling it, or do you maybe you feel like you need to tell it better? Like, do people know those three elements that were the beginning of the Kim Smiley empire? Mm-hmm.
I think some people do. I think your question is a great one, because a lot of people don't. But I also think, and this is sort of like a hard pill to swallow for someone like you or for someone like me, but it's just the reality. Not everyone is going to care about the social mission, and that's okay. Not everyone does have to care because it's not going to resonate with everyone in the same way. Some people are going to buy your clothes because they're beautiful, because they are. They're just going to love the way they fit, the way they feel, and they're not going to be that interested in the message behind it. Like, that's just the reality. So I have clients that are like that. They're not really interested in the whole story. And then I have clients that are like, they are enthralled by the message and they choose to wear it like I chose today to wear your dress. So there's two types of clients. You know, some people are going to be inspired and they're just going to be magnetized to your brand because of the brand story and the core values of your company. And other people are just going to buy it because they think it's pretty, and that's okay. And that's fine. I'm happy with both. It's not necessary for someone to have resonance with my brand values the way it has resonance for me. That's not necessary. And Ronnie has taught me that. Like, my partner has taught me that. I'm very passionate about it. I believe that passion is incredibly infectious, but that's not why some people are going to buy it. Some people are just going to buy it because they just like it. So I would say to you that for the people who are in sort of the camp of social purpose, you have to be very consistent. You have to be very repetitive. You have to keep saying it and saying it. And, it's funny because I think that a lot of us, it's like evangelical, and we associate anything evangelical with, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be evangelical about my brand, but I think we've got to get over that. That's the first thing. Get over yourself. You're creating a social mission that's way bigger than you. So, women especially, I think, are uncomfortable with being evangelical about their own brand. But, I try to be the biggest cheerleader when women do that about their own companies, to help them just lean into it. You just got to lean into it. And so I try to do that on social media for other people. I say that, very sort of with self-assurance, but it's a struggle for me too. I don't want to put myself out there too much. People are going to think this, they're going to think that. But the older I get, the more detached I become from the noise and the opinions of other people. I know in my heart what I'm doing. I know what my values, what my motivations are. And if people don't like it, that's fine. I'm okay with that. The other thing that I've noticed, Miri, is that people who spread a lot of illumination, people who spread light, right? The light workers out there, the people who are spreading goodness and kindness, those people are inevitably going to attract a lot of shade. And that's okay. Let them send shade. I don't care about that anymore. I used to get really upset when people would throw shade my way, but you have to develop, I think, as an entrepreneur, armor.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, just because of the empathy work that I do and just the way that I'm built, my DNA, I'm a highly sensitive person, and so it's hard sometimes to marry that highly sensitive person with entrepreneurship. So I've had to develop a thicker skin, and I have done it over the years, but it's hard. It's definitely hard. But getting back to your question, I would say, keep getting up on that podium, keep spreading the message. The people who aren't buying your product for that reason, that's fine. They could just tune you out if they don't want to hear it. But there are a lot of women out there who are going to be really gravitating towards your brand because of your values. I know for me, that's a huge part of why I love your clothes, is because just it's like armor for me when I put it on, because it's light. I feel like I'm healing myself. I'm restoring myself when I put it on. Am I the majority of people? I don't know. I'm still not sure about that. But we did a poll with our clients. I don't know if you've ever done that, Mary, but we actually sent out a survey. Mm-hmm. And we polled our clients because we wanted to see, it was almost like we wanted them to grade us. And we asked them the questions you asked. Do you know that, that we stand for X, Y, and Z? And we were really impressed because the people who responded, and granted, that's a stilted outcome because the people who are responded are obviously very invested, but we had a pretty good response rate. And the people who responded, they knew what our brand values were. And so we're actually launching an ambassador program. And this is something for you to think about too, because what I noticed and what Ronnie especially noticed was that other people were evangelical with our brand and our values. So how cool is it to create not just a clothing brand or a fashion brand or a jewelry brand, but how cool it is to create a constellation of people who believe in a mission and who are, just spreading it everywhere. So that's what we're doing. We're creating this ambassador brand that's all about our values and, our brand, and spreading it out into the world. Because, for both of us, I think I can speak for both of us. I think I could be presumptuous and do that. Like, we do it because of the essence and the soul, right? Like, I would never just start a jewelry company. Like, that would just never occur to me to do. Like, why would I do that? It's living and breathing the values. And like you said, it's creating a billboard for the values on the body, right?
100%.
The body is the canvas, and all those women that are out there wearing your dresses, wearing my designs, they talk about it and they're spreading that into the world. I find that beautiful.
It is beautiful. You said it, you hit the nail on the head, because one of my concerns is to be repetitive, because when I'm looking at who is watching me, it's mostly the same people. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have those true fans that, they're liking my posts. I see that they're watching me. But if I'm going to talk all the time about the same things, I don't want to be boring for them, and I don't want to be repetitive for them. But you were 100% right, because at the end of the day, we want to keep growing and we want to share. And we are doing because of those values that we have. And I know that I'm only in this business, really only in this business, because of my message, because I don't consider myself a fashionista, and because it is a ruthless business. It's very hard business. And I always say, I started it 25 years too late. This is a business for a young person. You need to be physically strong. You need to be physically fit. You need to be emotionally ready for the emotional roller coaster that a fashion business is. And like, people have no idea that when you buy fabric and then they cut wrong, but you paid the fabric somebody else, and now you lost all this fabric. Like, or you ship a product and UPS loses your shipments, and like, I got one time a box, literally a box. It was like really big box. I open inside, there are 3 dresses and like 100 caps from a different company with somebody's logo. And I'm like, the box probably open, maybe many boxes. And the UPS people just quickly shoved stuff inside a box, close it. Now go figure out. And I don't have my goods. The hat guy doesn't have his hats. And and God knows how many people, they don't have their products, but people don't know what goes on behind the scenes. It seems like a very glamorous job, but to me, if it is not for the message, I mean, I wouldn't be here. I
agree with heart. I don't think fashion.
No, it's not. Kim, this is so meaningful to me. This hour that I spent with you. First of all, every time we talk, I feel like an energy. I feel it in my skin. I feel it in my soul. I don't know. I do feel like people's energy, but every single time that I spend, it doesn't matter if it's a quick phone call or if it's a longer time that we talk, I feel like that. And to me, that shows how authentic and genuine everything that you say and you do is, because I don't know, I feel it in my skin. And it's such a pleasure to be around somebody who's so real, and that I can call this person a friend. So I want to ask you if you have any parting words, something about kindness, something about empathy, something that you want to share with the viewers and whoever's going to watch it on replay.
The only thing that I would share is that it's easy to practice kindness. Try to do one thing a day. Just very simple message. Just try to do one thing. Look for the opening, to do one thing a day. And don't look for how that's going to come back to you. Just do it for the sake of the goodness and for doing something beautiful, not for how it's going to positively reward you. And that is the message that I would leave people with. And just thank you so much. I adore you, and I'm so happy to be on this show. I anytime I get to speak to you is a more beautiful day. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Kim. I just want to add one thing to what you said, because I think that a lot of people feel daunted about
Yes.
how am I going to do something good a day? Like, I don't know what to do. I have my life. I'm so busy. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And the first thing that when I stopped to think about really intentionally living a life with kindness, was that so much of what we do on our regular lives is an act of kindness. But if we have the wrong feelings towards if we have resentment, then
Yes.
it's not. But
Yes.
so many things that we do, I always give the example of the dishwasher. I find dishwashers annoying. I don't know. I wash it before, and then I have to bend it to put it in, and then I have to find the soap, and then I have to this, and then you have to unload the whole dishwasher. And I find the whole job of the dishwasher annoying. And I used to resent it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it's something that's here to help, and here I'm resenting, right?
Right.
But I'm resenting. And then one day I realized something, that I could use me filling up the dishwasher as my act of kindness for my family.
Yes.
As long as when I'm doing it with joy,
Yes.
and I'm doing it for them, and I'm saying, you know what? I got up before everybody else. I'm going to fill up the dishwasher, and I'm going to do it with love for them, and I'm sending the love through this act.
Yes.
And I think that everybody can find something that they do for others in the family, that they do it, not with such good taste, not feeling so great about it. They resent it because maybe they feel like they're being taken advantage. But if you see that as your act of kindness for the day, you completely change something that you were going to do anyway.
Yes.
An annoyance, now it became so don't look like you need to change. Start little in your own home, and I think that you can make such an impact for your family, for yourself, for the way how you react to the things, the way you're living your life. So that's my 2 cents. Everybody, thank you so much. I ask everybody to please share this video. That could be your act of kindness today. I'm giving you a great idea. That's easy. It's a share. And the reason I ask is because you can affect somebody in a way that's going to be so meaningful. Maybe somebody that's going to watch this is going to show more empathy. It's going to show their children empathy. It's going to start adding acts of kindness into their daily lives. And it's up to your little fingers to make this accessible for somebody else. So please share. You cannot share it from inside Heal with Gold. It is a private, sacred, safe space. So nothing is shared from there. But you can go to my personal page, and you can go to YouTube, Mika Fashion channel, and you can share it from there, and just see this as an opportunity to help other people. And that's it. And until next week, everybody. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.